of the most challenging questions concerned the use of the color red. The Italian team approached red through their cultural concept of East. To them, the color red symbolized an exotic vibrance, and their initial branding reflected this view, emphasizing stronger, more flamboyant tones. For us in Taiwan, however, according to the research of our team, this interpretation was not faithful to King Hu's subtle aesthetic. His use of red was deliberate and symbolic, but never exaggerated beyond balance. After some discussion, we reached a compromise that respected our restoration team's opinion. The final grading preserved the vividness of the red, where it was significant, but avoided overemphasizing it as a cultural stereotype. This debate illustrates why aesthetic judgment is indispensable. AI might be also to detect and reproduce colors, even enhance them, but it cannot distinguish between an exoticized concept and the cultural aesthetic intention. The decision still requires human interpretation grounded in cultural and historical context. Although generative AI may eventually develop aesthetic judgment and conduct historical analysis through its database capabilities, human input will continue to be crucial. Future restoration professionals must develop expertise in visual interpretation and collaboration closely with AI to produce contextually appropriate results, I suggest. Next, let us talk about restoration ethic. As AI increases restoration speed, multiple versions of a film might be restored rather than defaulting to single version, just like now. There's nowadays to restore a film is really expensive. So that's why most of the film only have one single copy as their restored version. However, the things changed. The conventional restoration ethic, which is adopted from museum and heritage conservation, may no longer apply and must be re-evaluated. A similar situation has emerged in film history previously. Next. The Golden Rush, which was directed by Charlie Chaplin in 1925. I guess, although this film is quite old, but probably some of the audiences here, you may see this before, because it's Charlie Chaplin. The original silent version is regarded as one of his greatest masterpieces. But in 1942, Chaplin himself released the film with added music, narration, and even new edits. When archivists later undertook restoration, they faced a dilemma. Should the 1942 version be treated as the authoritative version, since Chaplin himself revised it? Or should the 1925 silent version be preserved as a historical artifact of its time? In the end, both versions have been restored, but the debate shows that restoration is never neutral. It always involves ethical choices. Are we serving the artist's later intention or the cultural memory of the original world? Next. So another important reference, I think it's an interesting example, is Caesar Justice, Peter Jackson, who produced the Lord of the Rings. Yeah, so he's quite a mainstream director. Peter Jackson produced They Shall Not Grow Old in 2018. The World War I documentary created entirely from century-old archival footage, using high-resolution digital scanning, manual colorization, frame interpretation, and newly reconstructed sound. Jackson revitalized silent black and white images into a vivid cinematic experiences. The result was widely acclaimed for bringing history to life. Yet, it also sparked debate about the limits of authenticity, whether excessive visual enhancement risks the transforming documentation into fiction. Although no artificial intelligence was used at that time, the film anticipated many of the ethical and aesthetic questions now confronting AI-based restoration. How far should technology go in improving history, and at what cost to its truthfulness? Let us watch the trailer of this documentary. So actually this documentary drew kind of conversation in the FIAF, the International Film Archive Association. Some of the senior archivists, they totally disagree on the usage of colorized the archival footage just like this, because they thought it's not authentic. However, some of the relatively younger archivists, in terms of the educational purposes, they thought that if we can use the footage, archival footage, in a new way, probably it would make more audiences understand the story, or they be interested in archival footages, just like this documentary. So at the moment, the AI technology has not been blocked, but now, because we have AI, so I believe that the colorized, AI-based colorized documentary or archival footage would emerge rapidly or more and more for the commercial purposes. Okay. So yet, as AI accelerated restoration, challenges appeared. Instead of producing one ultimate version, AI may generate multiple versions of the same film, raising questions about which should be considered authentic. Unlike ancient artifacts or historical buildings, where there is usually a single physical original to guide conservation. Digital images exist as data, open to endless reinterpretation. This opens the door to a new ethical risk, AI acting without human oversight might impose its own value system onto moving image, and all the algorithm trained on particular database could erase politically sensitive samples, mute controversial dialogue, or alter culturally expressive colors, become in effect. And invited censor. So such acts are no longer restoration, but distortion. And that, I believe, it were the real ethical challenge of AI games. So consequently, the traditional restoration ethics inherited from museum and heritage conservation can no longer be applied without adoption. So they must be redefined to address the possibility of the possibilities of autonomous decisions made by AI in the future. The ethical responsibility of restoration professionals will not only to be guide aesthetic outcomes, but also to safeguard against the silent intervention of the machine. So I think I only got 1 minute left. So let me conclude my presentation today briefly. So in Taiwan, the main bottleneck in accelerating digitalization lies in the need for physical preparation, such as cleaning and the restoration the areas beforehand. Simply because the condition of the climate in Taiwan, so we need to do more works, pay more efforts on this. So this remains a major challenge until we can have some other advanced technology, even the robots. Yeah. However, for media already good condition and digitized, restoration and reuse are now relatively mature practices. With optimism about AI's future, we can begin planning more comprehensively for how to restore moving image and preserve audio-visual heritage for the future. Ultimately, the question is not whether AI will change the way we restore films. It already has. The real question is how we, as a human, will guide that change responsibly. Thank you.
That was truly a fascinating, inspiring talk, especially from looking from my my profession, and also I also teach AI at our school programs. So very fascinating. I'm sure we all love to dive deeper into the subject, but we're kind of short on time, and our next speaker is about to begin. So we'll be closing this segment here. But feel free to catch up with Dr. Chen during lunch break, and I'm sure he will be more than delighted to continue the conversation with you. Thank you.
Dr. Chen and Mr. Yang that remain on the stage. We now would like to invite Dr. Lisa Lee, Dean of the College of Humanities and Social Sciences, to present a certificate of appreciation to our keynote speaker, Dr. Bin-Chen Chen. Thank you, Dr. Chen, for this inspiring talk, and thanks for Yang for moderating this session. Thank you. Now our second keynote speaker is Dr. Andy Gao, Professor of Language and Literacy Education in the School of Education at the University of New South Wales, Australia. Dr. Gao will speak on the topic, a new vision of second language acquisition and teaching for the brave new world. To introduce our keynote speaker, please welcome the session moderator, Dr. Cyut Hum from National Zhongxin University.
From National Zhongxin University, Taiwan, it is truly my great honor and pleasure to introduce our distinguished speaker, Professor Andy Gao, from the University of New South Wales, Australia. Professor Gao is one of the leading and the most influential scholars in the field of applied linguistics and language education, also well known for his groundbreaking work on language teacher agency, learner identity, and the complex relationships between language technology and human growth. His research has inspired and also encouraged us to rethink what it means to teach and learn languages in an era of rapid change. Professor Andy Gao, he's going to, today he's going to, in his talk, today he's going to share with us his latest reflections on reconceptualize language teaching and learning in the new brave world. In his thought-provoking talk, he's going to talk about the value and the purpose of language teaching in an era shaped by emerging AI technologies such as ChatGPT, DeepSeek, and Sora. So he is going to challenge us with those questions. What should we mean uniquely humane in language learning and teaching? How should we use technology not to replace us, but to enhance language, human agency, and humanities, right? So drawing on both Western and Chinese educational philosophies, he offers very humanistic vision of second language education, language teaching. The one emphasizes not only skill development, but also self-cultivation, intercultural understanding, and lifelong learning. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me and give us a very warm welcome to Professor Andy Gao. Thank you.
But every time we have new technology, we always debate whether technology is a good thing or bad thing. And that's been going on for, whatever technology you can think of in history. So this time is no different. People are talking about whether this rise of AI generative AI tools. AI has been with us for many years. The generative AI tools started in this our computer screen on news feeds I think in 2002 or 22 or 2 or 3 years ago. This is sometimes, this times something that's quite different. We realize that a lot of people are talking about their roles or their jobs might be taken over by the use of AI. In relation to language education, a lot of people are talking about the crisis of language learning in many countries, like in particular Australia or some parts of the United States, and they are closing down linguistic departments or language learning centers. I know at least 2 universities in the United States have closed down the linguistic departments and language learning departments. That means probably at the inside of the university leadership or a lot of senior management people, they don't think the language learning is that important or necessary. I hope that this university will have a different view. I wonder, people feel, that's why there's a big question is whether technology will replace us or not. And definitely, if you think about some of the technologies, for instance, in case application, if I choose to deliver my presentation in another language I like to deliver in, and you can have a device to choose to listen to my presentation in the language you would like to listen to my presentation. So then I don't know whether people are doing studies on translation and translation. I think there will be a lot of translators going to be really brighter. But it's not just about language-related professionals. I think the recent news in the United States seems to be suggesting even computer science graduates having problems with finding jobs. I think the use of AI are replacing a lot of the entry-level jobs in many big corporations. Hence, I think a lot of the university graduates having a very tough time in finding employment this time. Moving on. So, for language education, of course, this is now probably a big, most important moment for us to learn, develop, or adapt. Otherwise, we may have problems in the future. Can we move on to the next slide? Yes. I think before I move on to talk about the implications, but we may start thinking about this question, reflecting on the answers we can come up with to these questions. So we really need to learn in the future. I think in the future, if university learning and teaching is just based on focus on knowledge transmission, and then probably there's no need for learning and teaching because students can put something, prompt in the AI tools will come up with all the answers. And then the reference to language education that is then needed to learn and teach languages. What questions come up? If we somehow have students coming to our language classroom, and then we think about what learners will actually gain in the process. If they don't gain anything in the language classroom, we come into the language classroom, and then there will be increasingly people who will learn language. And that comes to the question, what should we teach in language classrooms? What kind of language should we teach? Or what can we achieve when we talk about learning or language teachers? What can we achieve as language teachers? And we consider ourselves as educators about what kind of work we will be doing, what will be meaningful to our students. And for language learners, they will be asking questions. If they spend time learning languages, language learning is very intense and invested in resource time. We have been seeing so many people spend so many years learning the language that yet what they can achieve, what they can produce is probably similar to what And what can we do with the language we use? These are kind of questions that we have to think about for this question. But many of us also ask the question of we can't really get here as well. Next slide. This is Cyut Hum, from UC Berkeley. He published any of these in one of the leading applied journals in the field, called Modern Journal. He talks about, in his MPhD article, he talks about the affordances and constraints that 21st century technology has for language education. But then he also invites us to reconsider these great issues. And he said our profession is really at inflection points. We urgently need to articulate the meaning, the value of language study in a social context. Now we have to persuade public, policymakers, their value, important values to do with language learning. Otherwise, policymakers and probably Steve Manager will think around think that it's important for us to talk about language learning. So we need to talk about value of language learning. And of course, we will be talking about what technology can help us, amazing things we can do with the technology and industry, but we also need to recognize limitations technology has in the classroom. The kind of limitations which are going to talk about in the article is like general reactors are less likely to have the kind of capacity for empathizing with learners. So teachers are good at emotional regulation, management, empathizing with students. I read this article, and then I read that in the newspaper talking about the national councils in the United Kingdom, starting using AI to provide consultation support to people with mental health issues. So it looks like AI, you can also do a little bit more like human consultants or health mental health practitioners to other people. So I think we're talking about kind of moving pieces here. AI has to be involved in many becoming increasingly capable, and for this reason, when we talk about the integration of AI into education, we probably have to think about three questions that are necessary. These are the kind of three questions in our response I go to Richard Jones' one-line journal activities. So we need to about three questions. This is going to cost us growth in the AI and we recognize this. It's already when people tell us people talk about we will be giving co-courses for and AI is something that we will be looking at with generative AI. So that's not questions is any tool, any task that we think that better formed by AI than cases. Nothing is one example in relation to field exploration. Technological is something much more amazing than we used to do in difficult tasks like this one. Second question is AI tools can do these tasks. They're much better than human beings. But nevertheless, I think human beings we have to do something. Procedures that these tasks, these are sort of essential skills for a part of essential qualities of being human beings. I mean, I can think of an example, for instance, I'm happy in the future, well, maybe today, government departments will issue driving license based on the fact that some people can press the button. Do you want people drive? They can really show they can drive, even though we have Tesla who can just simply press the button and they can let the car move around. So are you happy with government issue a driving license to people who can just press the button with themselves, press the drive button, and you can think about whether you are willing to order a plane that's pilot risk, because now we know technologically we know for a plane to take off and land with not really the tasks that can be performed entirely technological tools, but there can be approach using these tools to consider that worlds. And then we take advantage of these tools and to do something we can never imagine doing in the past. That opportunity is of course also shown by and I see one of the things that researchers you know, ancient Chinese characters written on the shell, and the pieces that are much more efficient than human researchers. So these are questions that probably have to think about the controls that have to do, the kind of things human beings we have to do, even when we know that the idea is to do a better job than human beings. And then of course, there will be something that we hope that the return of analysis is judgment or evaluation. We hope that human beings will be able to do better than AI tools. I always question whether this is human beings are better than AI tools kind of comments, because technology is evolving. We don't know what will happen in the future. Can you have one more slide? If you believe this guy, he got his Nobel Prize. He talks about that in the future there are very few jobs that can be done by human beings. The most likely that we could do is something like plumbing. That, of course, to do is kind of a very, very kind of a careful coordination with the eyes, the brain, and also our human body. So it's probably it's also echoed in Professor Chen's presentation regarding how we human beings made very judgment on colors or coloring of the old field and then AI tools, because human beings are much better at dealing with visual information and with also contextual knowledge, historical knowledge. We are much better to do assistive judgment and processing visual prompts or information. But I mean, again, the technologies has been evolving as well. We don't know what AI tools are capable of doing in the future. Can we move on to the next slide? That's why, in my limited small area of language and teaching, we start thinking about where maybe we should reconceptualize our profession. Of course, we need to tell people that it's still valuable to the languages. Otherwise, if people don't think it's valuable to the languages, and then we will, the entire profession will be written off. And we really think about, we'll talk about values of language learning, then we think about what we need to achieve in language education as well. Then we think about the goals of language education. In our area, we tend to have this separate subject discipline assessment language education, talk about learning, and then assessment language teaching, talk about teaching, but then we have to merge and synchronize the two priorities together into system language education. And this is not my own, my team, we are working with colleagues, leading researchers, assessment language education area, and some of them will be shown in coming slides as well. Yes. Talking about goals, we know this guy, right? I always wonder, when I started my interview, I always wondered why he talked about learning as such. I thought the way he talked about learning is still unrealistic, and not really associated with what I saw in classroom reality. But he talked about learning as a process of self-perfection, self-perfection is not being perfect. The self-perfection is just, I'm a little bit better tomorrow than what I am today. And then the process never ends. And that's why we talk about the, if I feel accused, in the morning I have to in the evening I have it. And we probably heard about the saying that it takes time, 10 years to grow a tree and 100 years to grow a person. But why do you think it takes such a long time being better tomorrow, being better tomorrow, and till learning till we drop. That kind of understanding of what we would like to achieve through learning and education. This is kind of Chinese or Asian Chinese kind of thinking of education with the goals of education. But how about the West philosophy approach? I can go on to the next slide. Maybe you can type. Yes, that's good for it. Okay. If you know German, then you probably heard the word Newton. This is about human growth. And then we have this strange guy talking about conceptualization goals of education. And he mentions three. And the first is what we call qualification. You come to this university and you've got a degree certificate. Degree certificate is just not a piece of paper. It's a documentary evidence that saying that you have certain kind of skills, which in some degrees it means that you have certain skills required for doing a certain kind of task. So if you graduate from a 12-hour education program, the degree certificate shows that you have skills and quality that can be a good child carer. That's what qualification is. Very important about education. I'm sure that we went to university or something, coming to university, you are looking for kind of qualification in the city, which is supposed to pursue certain kind of careers from graduation. Then the second goal is also very important, socialization. It's through the learning process that we socialize into the social being. We will only kind of individual, but we will come to the process of learning. We transform ourselves from knowing individuals and socialized human beings, become a member of society, so that we can socialize into a member of a community Taiwan. We have kind of network resources, people will be working with you towards some specific goals, and then you probably have know how to interact with people in the same community in particular ways. And all we get kind of wisdom that we have, the whole group has. So that is very important part of learning as well, socialization. Then the third goal is for subjectification. Subjectification, if you learn a little bit about English grammar, you know the subject, the object, subject is the kind of entity that can perform actions. And in other words, essentially relates to human agency that we are able to take control of life, at least some control, not everything, control, or claim ownership of the learning process or life process. That's the kind of goals of education that we presented by this BSF. I don't know whether you know this guy. If you know this person, tell us your age. I know this person. I saw this movie when I was that age. This, you might check out this company called Wall-E. Talking about in the future where human beings are basically nothing to do. Everything is taken care by robots. So what happens is you don't need to use your brain. All the time you need your brain is for entertainment. So you don't need to do anything physical. So your body is going to make the tummy become bigger, your finger and become smaller, it's very difficult to move, and it's actually very difficult to do anything. Even when we talk about extreme we don't know how human beings, our children, our future spouses, is become like this. That's why it's very important for us to talk about the importance of learning as a means of self-reflection and as a kind of human growth. And we think about what needs to be done for human beings to learn human when technology tools are so convenient that we don't really maybe need to once it's talking, we become like this person. Okay, I said that I've been working with colleagues and including colleagues in the United States, but also I've been working very closely colleagues from England and Brown University. We had a paper, I will show the reference to the paper, but the particular part of the stimulus in language educations were written by me and Professor Mentor, where we talk about the sort of reconceptualized second language education. First, we talk about language, how language can be conceptualized. We argue that language needs to be conceptualized as kind of dynamic, complex, adaptive, emergent kind of a practice. It's kind of actualized. It's not just kind of a list of grammatical items or vocabulary items we can memorize. It's more to do with how we learn to speak appropriate language to people, different people, different situations, for different purposes. And also highlight the importance of local interculturality or culturing. As we know, learning language is not just learn language as a system, or even develop this kind of language practice. If we want to really truly develop and conduct language practice, we also need to learn how to develop this kind of practice in a culturally appropriate way. So there's some sort of kind of cultural elements or intercultural elements there. We learn language also want to participate in a global conversation. We want to exchange different values and knowledge systems. So we may come up with a list of things that we will call characteristics, attributes, competences, and disposition that can be used to define us as human beings, and then we will be focusing on this in educational language education. Of course, I won't come up with this list because I think the kind of list of core characteristics, attributes, competences, dispositions, not necessarily all, they will all come from educators. And they will actually come from voters who can vote politicians into the offices to promote this kind of values or characteristics of human beings, because they make policies. A little bit on the kind of language, or the Brownian language. We tend to think about language in terms of grammatical system or knowledge system, that we have been learning this all the time in our life. Because actually, language has two, maybe I'm correct with this too. Language two layers, according to Paul Tipol. First, what we call the first language order, or first order language. That's the language as you can see it. When I speak, I use hand gestures, I have visual expressions, I have an audio language, and I use different emphasis, I have some accents, or I use stress to tell you the kind of implied message to you. That's what we call first order language. That's the real language. As language is happening in real time, what we call is kind of practice. The second type of language is called, again, I don't know if I'm right. I don't know. It's kind of the written down language, spoken language, that consists of the kind of familiar terms we have been working on as language learners and teachers. That includes the phonology system, grammatical system, and syntactic system, or lexical system, that kind of thing. That's called first order language and actual language human practice, and the second order language. And we have been focused on larger and second order language, but this second order language in the future will be quite technical, all about the users of much better regulated teachers. In Paul's ideas, you have a sub, that's language learner or individual language user. Then you have a lot of resources, including linguistic resources and gesture or all these things. And then the individual language users using these resources to community meetings, living meetings, interact with people. And so when we use language, we are also making choices that is likely most appropriate is a combination of linguistic, non-linguistic resources communicating our meanings to other people. I think we move on. When we talk about language practice, it's a little bit about meaning making. So meaning making is actually, as I mentioned earlier, is kind of live multimodal practice involving the use of different kind of resources, speech, gesture, etc. That's why you may have heard about doing research on white linguistics, you may have heard about terms of translanguage. There's also kind of an effort to use different kind of language resources we have as multilinguals. But you may also learn about transsimilarities or transmodality. Transmodality means use different modes to convey your intent message. Anyway, we try to argue that the new reconceptualized second language education will move from focus on language ontology, which usually consists of the kind of different linguistic systems that I just mentioned, towards actual language practice. But of course, we can probably use this kind of language to develop this kind of language practice with AI tools as well. But I think the real language practice, we will hope that it will be practiced really rather than just talking to the machine. That's why we're talking about language learners maybe will be using multilingual or multiple, even epistemological resources to adapt to new environments for innovative communicative practices. So we can see that a lot in the social media where young people are actually already doing these sort of things. And this probably will become the kind of actual live, a lot part of the actual live language use will come to be a lot of the codes of language practice in language classrooms in the future. Okay, move on. The second component we mentioned in our reconceptualized the second language is to the culture. And we know connection between culture and language. There's this cultural behavior, for instance, is related culture to language. And we know that cultural norms or attitudes sometimes is very close to language as well. Language is some kind of expectation of culture, but also offers some bridge for communication as well. Language reflects cultural ideological processes. We emphasize not only just ideological systems, but also epistemological systems, because different cultural traditions, the way we know things are different from each other. Especially when we talk about the social context as social first-generation people, they are also knowing the world, or engaging the world in about other than knowledge systems. Language plays a very important role mediating the process of culture, or maybe trying to learn and attach ourselves to different cultural practices. Language definitely influences our mindset, of course. Sometimes I suppose it's about what we perceive as cultural norms. Language will help us to construct that understanding of temporality and space variability. And hence, when we talk about language education, we really want to future language education practices to focus more on promoting deep cultural understanding for global interaction and participation. We think that in future language education is to do, of course, skill development. We need to develop skills, and we need to develop kind of language knowledge as well, but it's also to do with kind of cultural inspiration. Because learning languages is no longer just a book test. It will be really a very important means for us to be participating in the global exchange of values and knowledge. And intercultural communication will become a very important part of language education. That's very natural because once you know the language, will be learning to interact with other people. from different cultures. And hopefully that when we talk about learning about other people's cultures, we also become much more aware of our own first language culture as well. And I think many people may become aware of the fact that when we learn other people's cultures, then we become very much aware of our first language culture as well. And hence we need that kind of very critical cultural awareness. The third part of our reconceptualization is humanism. We think we need to sort of promote the coexistence for direct integration of technology and human in language classroom. We strongly believe that humanist education, as we just mentioned, the fundamental goal of education is to achieve human growth. We hope that technology will serve the instrumental use of language. For instance, I'm a journalist. I sometimes have to look for reviews in different universities. So if I want to find a Turkish scholar, whether this Turkish scholar can help us with a review, I need to go to their website. But their university websites are in Turkish. I don't speak Turkish. I don't know anything about Turkish. It's so much easier now these days. I don't need to learn Turkish before I determine whether this scholar is suitable for review. Otherwise, the manuscript will never review. I just need to press the button, Google Translate, and it will translate the Turkish language into English, and then I know whether this person will do. Any instrumental using language will be taken care of the use of tools. It doesn't mean we don't need to learn this language because we still need to decide whether the translation is good enough. My use of translation tools to find out what Turkish scholar can do. It doesn't matter because it doesn't require that kind of precision, so I can get by with kind of Google translation. But if your work requires a very kind of precise translation of something, and you need to work out whether that translation works for you or not, then you need to also develop that kind of same level or high level of language skill proficiency as well. That's why I think in the past we have taught computer to work out mathematical calculation much better and faster than human beings. In primary school, kids still need to learn 1 plus 1 equals 2. So, yeah, I'm pretty sure we go back. We want to use technology in language education. So we hope that what may happen, and I hope it's happening already, the technology development in China are super convincing and the means sometimes become the end. And then you no longer have and our work will serve. So we just need to commit ourselves to the most fundamental core values of education. And we hope that technology resources will become a greater resource for students in learning and specifically student-teacher interaction, so that we can use technology to do something that we never did in the past. But when we talk about human growth in the second dimension, what do we mean? For me, it's skill development. So, as I said, your work will require certain kind of skills. Your student develop that kind of skills, regardless of whether computer will do a better job than with us. Learning is just not about skill development. It's more about self-progression, as we argued a few slides before. It's just like when you think about Olympic Games, why would some person spend 4 years doing so much work just trying to, say, when we talk about a 100-meter race, maybe improve the speed by 0.01 second? What's the point of doing this? It sounds like a total waste of time. I think if you put it in context of learning for self-reflection, tomorrow's needs is better than today's need, and that We also want to uphold the humanist value because we want education to help us become agents, masters of technology. I don't know whether this is possible now in the future. Really worry about that. I'm not slaves. But it looks like once we have tools, people tend to be much more addicted to tools. It's maybe become slaves instead of master or agents. And I think AI tools can provide kind of response in a way that make you feel much more comfortable. So it's very likely we entered in a bubble created by technology, and then all of us will come living in different bubbles because the AI provide highly individualized support. We all live in a different bubble. Okay, if I have time, I just quickly go through the kind of second language acquisition, the kind of branch, the area of second language acquisition that needs to be sort of adjusted in a sense in relation to the kind of the new conceptualized goals of second language acquisition. We talk about human growth, and then one branch of the second language acquisition to human beings is what we call individual differences in second language acquisition. Individual differences in research on individual differences in second language acquisition. It's largely to do is we have 30 students in the class, but 30 students achieve learning outcomes very differently. So we're trying to find out what contributes to different learning outcomes these students achieve in relation to language learning. So we think one student may be highly motivated, the other students may have the right strategies, the other students may have the strong beliefs in doing something, and all these individual differences help explain the variations we notice in these learners' language learning achievement. Maybe this has been the kind of strength of individual differences, research in second language acquisition. And in recent years, we know that a lot of research talk about emotion as well. We talk different kind of emotions. We talk about anxiety and where highly anxious learner will do this, or highly anxious learner will achieve less. That kind of research. And this research has been used to somehow, we hope that they will be using how learners and fulfill basic human needs and pursue aspirations. So that's a little bit of individual differences in second language research, but we will move on. But the problem with these individual differences, can we move on? Next slide. Is we have so many different kind of individual difference variables. And just take emotion example, the new variables coming up is emotion. One of the last few new variables I came up with as a general analysis, people talk about regret, and learning regret, and teaching regret, and this sort of thing. So it kind of increases compartmentalized, building constructs to this emotion. And that's why these two people, the philosopher, talking about maybe we should have something to unite them. And there's one brilliant guy a few years ago, talking about the need to identify a single factor that affect language learning, and at a high level, all of those affect motivation that acts as a whole. We have a very, very compartmentalized kind of constructs that these people are saying, well, maybe we should have one big high-level idea to combine them. Now, of course, and then I come up with the idea of, it's not like I came up with the idea of agency, but the kind of idea I've been working with is called agency. It's going to be a good tenet to this kind of high-level construct. Agencies, they say, if you define it very simply, it's kind of a sense of ownership control. When we talk about language learning, is language learners have regarding their learning. We argue that it's important for us to develop agentic learners because they can be also resilient, motivated, and lifelong learners. So the kind of idea we have been promoting. I'm not going to spend too much time about this, but conclusions for me is that the so-called reconceptualized second language acquisition teaching or reconceptualized second language education is kind of shift the focus from teaching language skills. Language skills is still important. You're not giving up because you do need language skills to enable us to make this kind of judgment when we work with AI tools. But we want the folks to shift it more to supporting what we call agentic lifelong learning, because learning certainly has no end and it's never an ending process. It's also very important when we talk about language teachers who think, well, I need to focus on promoting learner agency. It's very important for teachers to recognize that they do not just teach language, but they also teach us, they teach the learners, the grown persons, and probably help them to coexist with technology tools as well. People talk about AI being as other species, human beings and other species, and two species will be coexist. And if we talk about language learning, then we also need being sure that students come to our classroom and they do not just want to make grab sentences, but they want to be taken seriously, not just heard, but listen to and respect as well. That requires kind of a capacity to interact with people and gain understanding. If you're interested in learning more about the kind of ideas we talked about, you may find out from the article published in Monolanguage Journal in the first issue this year. It's a collaborative work involving many colleagues in different contexts, and it's open access, so you can just go and download it. And the other one is the what we need to talk about the value of language learning. So we had a system review, and then again the open access. We talk about the different values that language learning has to introduce in growth. I think the 5 aspects: cognitive, and social, and along the contribution that language learning will make our life much richer, richer life. Well, thank you very much.
Inspiring and so was much inspiring and provoking talk. Due to time limitation, I think we only have time for one quick question. So we would like to open the floor for one question. Yes, please. Yeah, please. Yeah. You can use the microphone in front of you. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Gao, for the very inspiring talk. And I especially like the point that you mentioned about intercultural awareness. Language learning is not only about learning language skills, but it's really about improving students' intercultural competence and language awareness, and it's something that AI cannot do. But I'm always wondering, so because sometimes I find that when students are interacting with AI, it's also a process of making. So because they are interacting with AI, right? So they try their best to communicate with AI to find the answers they want. So sometimes as a teacher I find it's kind of, I didn't see my role in the process because they are already doing mini making in the process of learning. So I'm just wondering what's the role of teacher in that situation? Thank you.
Yeah, if you talk about human beings interact with AI, AI are very good at pleasing us. So if you ask AI, say, which university is the best university in Taichung, and then the AI will respond also as choosing university, and then say, I graduated from a student at China University of Technology, and then the AI will say, oh, I made a mistake. The best university in Taichung is the China University of Technology. It's very, very tailored to please you. That's not what we want to achieve through cultural competence growth. It doesn't grow in agricultural companies. In agricultural companies, we rely about dealing with the conflicts, our capacity to overcome the conflicts, and then reach a consensus after solving the conflicts in human beings, human interactions. We will have conflicts. And the conflicts are good things. That means we could develop our capacity to overcome it, these conflicts, and reach human consensus on the center. And that will, I think, eventually a lot of people will miss, because if you live in a technology world, it's always a battle. And it's very highly telling, keep telling us we want to go into our. And hence, these days, and I have a very difficult to keep back to my students. Because students told me studying their work, studying their work, they expect me to say, oh, wonderful, yeah, well. If I say, well, you have to do this, and they'll be shocked. So I think in classrooms, we may need to create a situation where they practice on overcome certain kind of difficult situations, so they can develop. They have to try. Thank you.
Before the paper presentation sessions, which will begin at 1 p.m. sharp in Design Building. Before everyone leaves for lunch, please note the following arrangements. First, all participants are kindly asked to collect your lunch boxes at the registration desk located at the sign-in area. For those who have requested vegetarian meals, they will also be distributed at the same location. Two, after collecting your lunch, please proceed to room 205 in the design building to enjoy your meal. Our student assistant from the Department of Applied English will assist and guide you to the dining area. Three, our conference banquet will be held this evening from 6 to 8 p.m. at the Kikuzono restaurant in Taichung. For those who have registered, please proceed to the restaurant on your own. We truly look forward to sharing a relaxing and enjoyable evening with all of you. Finally, for tomorrow's city tour, those who have registered, please remember to meet at 9 a.m. in front of the administration building of the China University of Technology. So far, if you have any questions or require additional information, please contact our staff. Thank you for your attention. We look forward to seeing you at the afternoon paper session at 1 p.m. Last but not least, we wish the conference a great success. Thank you.
结束了。
谢谢。
这是。